The reach of that Jesuit Pope is really beginning to demonstrate.
It'll be his first address to the United Nations General Assembly. He's going to set the tone for an anti-poverty summit where leaders will adopt ambitious new global development goals for the next 15 years. So this, on the 70th anniversary of the founding of the United Nations, the Pope really is going to be giving them the marching orders for the next decade and a half.
That's right. And then following this meeting.
And so what Francis himself says, all Christians need an ecological conversion, whereby the effects of their encounter with Jesus Christ become evident in their relationship with the world around them. And so then he goes into the substructure of a converted consciousness that's not just global, but what is it that's underneath a global consciousness conversion? It is national and local consciousness change. It's cultural change at a local level.
New American dream. Suburban home. Every person having a tract of land. And why not? We had so much land. And it was pushed by the tax dollars that were coming from the gas tax. Guess what? That model is over. We're no longer building suburban tract homes. We're building very few of them. The new model is what? It's not quality of life. Where you have a single family home, you have your TV, and you have 2 cars in the garage. But it's more focused on quality of place. So we're replacing quality of life with quality of place.
So the suburbs were a correct response to meeting the needs of the baby boomers. That whole 50-year period, the 50-year cycle, is now at an end. So now what?
Secretary Fox issued a draft study earlier this year called Beyond Traffic, a framework for the next 30 years and what the different transportation implications are going to be. And our job is to help finalize that framework by going around the country and hearing the perspectives of stakeholders like you in these different mega regions.
First of all, it's great to be in Long Beach, California, in the Southern California mega region. Let me talk about the term beyond traffic. This is a term that the Secretary actually developed as we were developing this report. And we called it beyond traffic because it's more than just driving a car. It's about buses, it's about rail, it's about high-speed rail, it's about light rail, it's about moving freight, it's about everything that involves our transportation system. We wanted the Beyond Traffic to be more than just not a prescriptive document, so we wanted it to be something that framed a national discussion. And it has to be about what our country needs, both now and more importantly, 30 years in the future. We're going to have to be handling the population demands that we know are coming.
As part of a larger mega region, Long Beach is attracting non-driving millennials, and you probably saw them coming in, and immigrants who make up a great use of our light rail and our growing bicycle infrastructure.
Now, in our research, we identified 11 different mega regions throughout the country. And what we have determined a mega region is a center of economic, social, and infrastructure ties throughout the country. And as you see with the Southern California mega region, it goes through Southern California and also touches on Las Vegas. We have any people from Nevada here. So one of the things you want to look at with this particular mega region is that you're projected to almost a 62% growth rate by 2050. That's a lot more people. And what we have seen is that over the next 30 years, there's going to be 70 million more Americans in this country. Now, what we have found is that transportation is the second largest cause of greenhouse gas emissions in the country. This falls only behind electricity generation at 31%. Additionally, we're seeing an increasing amount of severe storms and weather patterns, rising sea levels, and higher temperatures. And this brings into question the resiliency factor of our transportation system, and how can we create a transportation system that is able to keep up with our changing climate?
What is regional government?
Regional government is basically, very few people know what SCAG is. We know what it is because we're involved in this world. Southern California Association of Governments covers 19 million people in Southern California. They are an unelected, hugely funded shadow government that their mandate is to put essentially everybody out of their cars. And it's, if you go to SCAG's website, they have a $540 billion plan that's supposedly going to go through 2040 to completely remake Southern California. And just to put that in perspective, the Marshall Plan, where we paid to rebuild Europe after World War II, cost about 2/3 less in today's dollars. So my question is, what exactly are they planning to do with all that money? And it's completely rework the roadways. This is all based on a thing called sustainable development that you listeners may or may not know about. But it is it's a fairly radical environmentalist idea that believes in global warming, believes cars are the thing that is causing it, and it works to get everybody out of their cars into public transportation on bikes and on foot.
The head of SCAG is Hassan Ikarata, who is literally a former economic planner in the Soviet Union, and he said that in a great nation like ours, you can't let people do what they want. It has to be coordinated.
Thank you for being here. I think a couple of things I want to start with. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is not a regional government coming to tell local cities and local communities what to do.
The central plan is called a Regional Transportation Plan. It's actually a federal environmental document that makes sure that everything that we do in our region reaches all of the environmental impact targets that we have in Southern California. The total cost to implement the plan is about $500 billion.
I just have a question about how, you know, how things change over time, and you keep talking about stakeholders. I mean, who are these stakeholders you're talking about who are interested in helping these minority communities?
So we actually have over 800 stakeholders on our just on our EJ contact list alone, and I believe we have that many more just on our RTP-SCS list.
So here's Sandbag at night, and you can see the second floor is all lit up. Offices where only the elite are allowed. But our part of the meeting is over here at the SCAG office, where Arnold hangs out by himself all day. Welcome draft 2016 to 2040 public hearing participants, which as of right now are, these participants consist of me and Lee.
Signing up public, we see about stuff.
Living in Southern California, we seem to have it all. The beaches.
So, as you can see, there's Imperial and Ventura, the LA boardroom. Right now, those are all empty, and then us. Okay, so it's January 19th at 9:45 a.m. and I'm here at the SCAG office at Sandbag for the public hearing on the plan. This is the second public hearing, and there's supposed to be all the counties involved today, including Orange County. So we'll see how many people show up. If you recall, at the last public hearing, in the 5 Southern California counties, Orange County wasn't part of it. There were 3 members of the public that showed up, and that is abysmal engagement, and so I call that bogus engagement. So let's see what the second public hearing is going to bring. Okay, so here is the sign for the hearing.
Morning.
Hello, how are you? Good morning. How are you? You gonna do another one of these, Alan?
Yep.
Wow, are you gonna?
I had a meeting already, so I'm already here.
Oh, interesting. So we'll just go ahead and document that there's a lot more material here than there was at the first public hearing. They went ahead and got some of these booklets, the bigger booklets, and a bunch of comment cards. I'm going to attempt to disseminate this information. So here is the plan.
These are the appendices, and this is the actual plan here.
Nice. And how many pages is that?
They have it broken in sections, so I'd say about at least 300.
That's about a phone book there.
And then this one is at least 250. So we've got at least 500 pages.
I think it's more than that.
Probably more.
I wonder if Arnold knows how many pages it is. I should ask him.
What a stellar, important day, and we all know why.
I want to kind of share with you some of the statistics that we compiled with regard to the discussion leading up to us being here today. We've had 200 meetings with local jurisdictions. We've had over 100 technical committee meetings. We've had over 50 policy committee and subcommittee meetings, 18 regional council and joint meetings, 50 workshops, open houses, hearings, over 75 presentations to stakeholder groups. That comes to a total of almost 500 meetings to get to where we are today.
Nobody went to.
It's been a very inclusive process, I think. We can all agree.
Well,
based on the number of comments, we're going to limit to each speaker to 2 minutes, please. Keep your comments. Keep your comments focused.
Well, I have a prepared, it's about 3 minutes, but. Good afternoon, unelected regional board. I have waited a long time to do this. I found out some time back that this body that most people have never even heard of intends to spend $500 billion on a single plan. This is not getting paid for at the city council level. This is wholly funded by vehicle mileage tax, which means you intend on stealing $500 billion out of people's cars to pay to put them onto bikes. This plan is to put everyone out of their cars and onto bikes, buses, and trains. There is no arguing that this entity wants us out of our cars. Last year, the state of California tried to pass Senate Bill 350, which would cut all gasoline sold in the state by 50%. No gas means no cars. Thankfully, that bill has completely failed. SCAG's own numbers state that 95% of the population is driving around in cars, which means the vast majority of people wouldn't like this plan to begin with, but most people don't even know this is occurring. This is criminal. Where's the media at? Why aren't there 50 cameras back here documenting this is going on? This whole plan is based on lies. The phony science of global warming and climate change. Carbon dioxide is not a dangerous pollutant. If you believe in God, you know that it's not possible for CO2 to be bad for the planet. Plants need CO2 to live. We are told that millennials are just dying to live in tiny apartments, not drive, and hang out in parks all day. It's time for a little wake-up call. This came out the other day. It says, guess who's moving to the burbs? The millennials. This one also came out the other day. It says, millennials love to drive. Everything being presented is social engineering and propaganda. This is an LA Times article from a few days ago. Here's what it says about the drought. It says the best weapon against water shortages in the future is a sensation of crisis today. This is all propaganda and social engineering, all $500 billion of it. I went to a meeting a few months ago and I recorded Alan Wapner refer to the Regional Transportation Plan as the central plan of Southern California. Central plan, he admits it. This is central planning. Central planning is communism. Mao's China, Stalin's Russia did these 5-year, 10-year, 20-year plans, and here we are engaging in the same behavior. America was not planned. America exploded into being out of a revolution. America did not become great because it was planned. America became great because it was free, and all this planning puts everyone into a box, literally and figuratively. To show you that this is communism, the other day, I only have another line to go. There's only a couple people speaking anyway. The other day, the LA Times, they had an article.
Sir, Sir,
Thank you. I'm almost finished. To show you this is communism, the other day the LA Times published this article that actually said the millennials want to live like communists, and then this article referred to this concept as sustainable communities, which is what this plan is based on. Don't approve this communist central plan. We don't need to change California into a smart slave grid, and don't need another $500 billion coming out of our pockets. Thank you for listening.
can I just say that one of the things that I think makes this country great is that we can listen to all points of view. We appreciate you being here. And if you want to spend a few minutes with any person here in the room, we could probably assist you with some of the information presented in your class. Moving on.
Next one is Trustee Capps. Hi, you guys are really rude to laugh at him. You should just listen and try to absorb some of this information. My name is Trustee Capps. I'm a toll-free IE. We're a group dedicated to stopping toll lanes in San Bernardino County. In a great nation like ours, you can't let people do what they want. It has to be coordinated. Right, Hassan?
In a great nation like ours, you can't let people do what they want. It has to be coordinated.
Does that sound American to you? Is that the principles that our nation was founded on? Go ahead, laugh at me if you want. What he just said is absolutely correct.
Please not yell. We're not deaf. People like us.
Anyways,
do the same way. You're on a microphone.
I'm upset because you just all laughed at someone who came all the way from West Covina. Anyways, I'm using my time. I have some pet names for Hassan. I won't share them. He knows what they are. This is a nonsensical plan that actually creates traffic. It erodes our freedom. I attended all 4 public hearings. The engagement was absolutely abysmal. An example is 19 million people in the region and only 14 letters. And we should have held this meeting in a stadium, but people don't know what you people are up to here today because they've done it all under the radar. So in closing, because that rude lady who's running this meeting is going to do the 2-minute time thing, honorable means deserving honor and respect. So I have a scripture for you, Proverbs 11:14. Without wise leadership, a nation falls. There is safety in having many advisors. And I would just urge you all, you were all elected to represent the people in your cities, not to take Hassan's edicts and rubber stamp them. So I hope today, as you vote, you will live up to the title honorable that SCAG has bestowed on you. Thank you.
So we're not just representing the 350,000 people that are in my city, but I'm representing 18 million people in this Southern California region.
One thing that came up during some other comments that I would like to add onto my list here is sort of city engagement. And just because I'm here representing 3 cities doesn't mean that each of those cities was disengaged in this process.
I do plan to vote for both the items, but I want to clarify on the 710, I support the tunnel, and to me this is an environmental justice and social justice issue. Those people, mostly minorities, who gave their homes or businesses reluctantly or willingly for the existing 710.
As you heard, it's about a $500 billion project. There are thousands of projects contained in there. It's thousands of pages long. The other thing you have to take into consideration is that when the federal government reviews the document, if they see that it's like a vote of 40 to 39 or something like that, they're gonna take more scrutiny in reviewing the document than if it's an overwhelming approval of the document. They might send something. So what I would urge you to consider doing is supporting the RTP as we've been requested to by many folks in our stakeholder group. So with that, Madam President, I'd like to make a motion based on that recommendation that the PEIR be approved.
I think we have a motion and a second on item number 2, which is the PEIR. The motion is to approve, to certify. Please ballot. And for clarification while we're balloting, we're going to take action on items 2 and 3 and then break for lunch.
Let's get 10 against.
Go ahead and close the polling. We have 49
Wow.
in favor, 3 against, we will scroll through to make sure that your vote has been properly recorded.
So I just found out that SCAG, which everyone in the room behind me denies as communist, they are communist. They are implementing United Nations Agenda 21 Sustainable Development. Of course, they pretend that they don't know what that is, but here they are receiving an award from the United Nations for their sustainable development goals. So SCAG is implementing United Nations Agenda 21. There's no doubt about it. There's no hiding it. They are not working on behalf of the people. They are working on behalf of the United Nations. Shame on all of them. Those people inside are all traitors. They have gone against their oath to uphold the Constitution. The UN does not supersede anything that the United States of America upholds or does.
When did we go from a local control government to a federal control government?
They fool you into thinking you have local control, you don't. Now when it comes to emission standards and environmental impact.
So environmental justice is also a federal requirement. And it's required of every federal agency receiving transportation dollars to analyze and make sure that its plans do not negatively or disproportionately impact low-income and minority communities. This is actually through several statutes, Title VI, Executive Order 12898 from 1998, and several other requirements and guidelines. And so that's where the concept of environmental justice comes from. So SCAG must do an environmental justice analysis as part of its RTP-SCS.
Environmental justice to make sure the low-income population households and also minorities, their interests are protected. That is very important. That's why we are here. Yes.
Can you define what the minorities are? What minorities are you protecting?
Yes, minorities based on the federal definition, really based on the ethnicity. So any non-white ethnicity, including African American, including Asian, including Hispanic.
So you would be considered a minority?
I would say so.
So
by the federal definition, yes.
Okay, I just want to understand what you're saying.
Yes, absolutely. But as a matter of fact, we do see, that's a very good question, Tracy. We do see a trend that so defined a minority may become majority in terms of the population.
So if there's less Caucasian people, then are they the minorities too, or not?
Caucasians are still considered as non-minority by definition.
We live in Fontana, and Hispanic people are the majority.
In
numbers. But that's not what you would consider a minority. So because there's less Caucasian people, that's not a minority.
Hispanics, even in your community, they are majority by numbers. They are still defined as minority.
I may be white, I may not be low income, but the fact of the matter is that doesn't mean that everything has to be distributed equally and evenly, because there is such a thing as structural disinvestment and structural racism, and this is what this plan is trying to do. It's trying to contradict centuries of disinvestment.
What's the scope of what we're talking about?
Number one is regional policies.
First, one of the most important things about conducting environmental justice analysis is understanding what groups we want to determine impacts, what groups we want to analyze and figure out how is our plan affecting these communities. So starting with identifying environmental justice population groups, starting with our minority population. Climate adaptation is looking at how communities will develop strategies to address certain climate change impacts. So like sea level rise. We know that our oceans are rising, and so there are going to be impacts within the next 100 years for a number of communities in Southern California. So we need to look at who are the people who are living in those areas, and will they be impacted, and are they environmental justice communities specifically. So just to reiterate what these are. We looked at every place, every community in the SCAG region, and selected out the ones that had the highest third of minority and low-income population. So this really helps us look at the areas that have the highest concentration of our environmental justice populations.
Those individuals who have come over here and said that you don't represent the community are completely mistaken. This community is 90% Latino, 45% undocumented, and these two individuals deserve the right to be here.
Dennis, can you run on an affordable housing platform as a supervisor?
No. Because the base of people who would vote for an affordable housing platform don't live in my community yet, right? So you've got to create a, I mean, if this is the agenda, you're going to have to create the base from scratch, and then you're going to have to make sure that they vote, and then you're going to have to make sure that I know that they vote.
Are communities that are sometimes threatened or intimidated by giving comment in a language that isn't as comfortable to them. So those are kind of the things that we're thinking about and we're looking at when we're building the high-speed train.
How do we remove that stigma of public transportation? Because once we do that, then that really talks to the issue of safety and to the issue of people feeling more comfortable using alternative transportations. And when you look at the diversity of our region, a lot of people come from parts of the world where the only thing they have is public transportation. So how do we, create that? How do we remove that stigma and being able to work with these diverse communities to ensure that that public transportation continues to be their option?
Now let's look at the U.S. map on the backside. This is the UN Wildlands Biodiversity Map. This is what Agenda 21 is. The red means you are not ever allowed to step foot onto it. The yellow are your parks, and the green is where you get to live. As you can see, there's not a lot of green on the map.
If you've ever driven I-5, you've probably seen the big signs for this. This is really an extraordinary piece of property located on the spine of California, right at the base of I-5 and 99, at the bottom of the San Joaquin Valley. For probably 150 years, it's been kind of a mysterious place, privately owned. Nobody really has had access to it. You may have seen the signs, you may have seen the incredible wildflowers that blanket the western edge along I-5 in the spring. But it's always been very much at the top of the list for conservation in California. And the reason for that is it's the largest private landholding in California, 270,000 acres, 9 times the area of the city of San Francisco. And it's all contiguous and it's all under one owner. It's a huge opportunity for conservation. And this is really the main reason why. You have the San Joaquin Valley ecosystem, you have the southern Sierra Nevada ecosystem, you have the Mojave Desert, and you have the coastal range. All of them come together on the Tejon Ranch. That means the species interact, both animal and plant. And to have this much land unfragmented and really under the control of one owner that you can get in a room with and sit down and talk to is great. And there's been lots of efforts over the years to persuade the Tejon Ranch Company, which is a publicly traded corporation, to talk about conservation, and they've always said no. So I've already kind of explained why this is significant from a conservation perspective. We call it the holy grail of conservation in California.
I'm on the 10 freeway right now, about a mile from where I live, and I want to show you these giant Agenda 21 walls that they're building to go along with this freeway widening project that they've been doing for quite some time. These walls are huge. They're about 15 feet up, and essentially the way it looks to me is you are trapped in this corridor as you drive through it. And of course the walls also can double as keeping people out. And so this is how it looks on the other side of the walls that I was showing you along the freeway. And as you can see, there's houses here. So there are people who live on the opposite side of this freeway, and right outside their house is this giant wall.
We've seen a lot of progress in Fontana, and we have enjoyed a real progressive trend in our city.
San Bernardino County is an awful big mouthful to be able to put onto a logo or a name. And we really wanted to represent how this region is becoming very progressive.
We're not saying that necessarily everything that's in here has to be done, next year, but it's really thinking about taking the opportunity when it makes sense to do it.
You know how difficult it is to pay these gentlemen from the front counter? It's incredibly difficult because they're incredibly busy and in a reactive mode. So we're getting them away from that reactive mode to be here and to do some progressive planning. Think about the future. We're looking at policies, developing policies, and getting this as far as we can.
We are trying to increase people getting, as the once woman that got up here and spoke, who said she brings her car home on the weekend, and then it's walk and bicycle the rest of the weekend. That's progress, ladies and gentlemen.
So what we're looking to do in the city of Rialto is participate in a nationwide trend to increase pedestrian and bicycling, walking and bicycling in the community.
We need money for a bike plan. We need a bike plan.
On transportation, we want to make sure that our roads continue to be in good shape. And we also want to make sure that our streets and our roads are more bike friendly and pedestrian friendly.
What can be done to further encourage biking and walking?
Last Saturday I had the opportunity on the trail I didn't really ride the bike. I took pictures by the bike. I'll put that out there. Okay, I did not get on that bike.
Wow, so you're working on Saturday? Well, at least you didn't have to go too far, right?
No, it's 20 miles.
Yeah, so did you ride your bike?
No, I don't.
No bike?
I never ride a bike.
Oh, okay.
Never. I don't know how to ride a bike.
I'm just teasing you.
The proposed project, referred to as Empire Lakes, will be a mixed-use, trans-oriented high-density development with residential and non-residential uses. The density will be relatively higher than the density of a conventional residential subdivision. The mixed-use characteristics are intended to encourage walking and bicycling and reduce automobile use and facilitate the use of Metrolink.
So when we talk about bicycles, typically for an average rider, 3 miles is a relatively easy commute. Very experienced and fast riders can do that in a very short amount of time. I'm personally a little slower, so I'm very happy with the 3-mile radius.
Riverside recently did the same thing, where they added a ton of bike lanes. They added a great big bike path up and down Market Street.
I am in Riverside, California right now, and this is the epitome of Agenda 21. So you are looking at a bike lane. It is a full lane that goes all the way up the street. Here we are, Buellton with their massive bike lane program, because this is sustainability. Small town, less than 5,000 people, probably never any traffic going down this street, but we need a massive bike lane so that no one rides down the street. I know, I see. Look at the old giant green bike lane. That's so necessary. No bikes anywhere. There's only cars on the road. In liberal ass San Luis Obispo, where's all the bikers at? Day off. Oh, look, it's a big old green bike lane. Look how stupid that is. Look at that.
And we're not doing living streets because we made it up. We're doing it because the state of California says you gotta balance the interests of pedestrians, bicyclists, and automobiles.
So I have noticed in San Luis Obispo that there are no buses in the downtown area. That means that this city is not fair and equitable. It is not a good communist city, even though we just passed by some communist art. So they need to redo their general plan so there can be buses everywhere, because people can't get around if there's no buses. So they need to take out this lane of the road you're seeing right here, put in a bus lane, and then you got your big bike lane. That would be a fair and equitable city, because you have a bus lane, a bike lane, and car lanes. Equality for all.
We're going to have something called, if you haven't heard already, you're going to see posters, something called Sunset on Sierra. Who would like to talk about what this effort is?
Sunset on Sierra is it's an event in the downtown. We're going to transform the downtown. We're going to shut down a couple of streets. We're going to transform it into a variety of different types of walking and cycling or bicycling options.
we are here in Fontana at the Sunset on Sierra demonstration event, and what they are doing here today is they are shutting down the streets so that cars are not allowed to drive for bike and pedestrian only traffic. This is all paid for through grants from SCAG and Sandbag, I believe. Now, if you are wondering why we are always in Fontana, it's because Fontana is the epicenter of the United Nations takeover of San Bernardino County and the Inland Empire, and these are the kind of things they are doing for our health, for our safety, for progress, and to fight global warming. So this is your future, America, shutting down the streets, shutting down your economy, and I've been walking around for a while, nobody's buying anything, the restaurants are empty, so this is what they consider to be progress. So check this out. This is what the empty streets of Fontana looks like on the Sunset on Sierra event. There's not a whole lot of people out here. I've seen hardly anybody on bicycles. Almost everybody is walking, and that's because people would rather drive their cars than have to walk and ride their bikes everywhere. So this is what it looks like when your economy is shut down in the name of progress so that the planet does not get too hot. And what I have started to realize about this event is this whole event is all about propaganda for the city. So we have more city tents coming up. We have Healthy Fontana. We have the Community Services Department. And then further down over here, we have City of Fontana tents, more City of Fontana tents. So this whole event is about propagandizing city services.
The Sunset on Sierra portion of this event was made possible, and I want you guys to clap loud, through a grant from the Southern California Association of Governments, better known as SCAG, and the San Bernardino Associated Governors, Sandbag. Let's give them a big hand, everybody.
We hope that our residents will consider how street designs can help reduce traffic collisions and encourage more people to walk and bicycle. Bicycling or walking not only keeps our communities active and healthy, but by creating dynamic and connected communities, it also fosters the local economy by catalyzing small businesses. People on bikes make more frequent trips to local businesses compared to those who drive. So walk, bike, skate, or roll along Sierra and check out the new features like protected bike lanes and parklets. We hope this demonstration event will only be the beginning of a safer and healthier San Bernardino County.
Now, this is about safety for our communities. This is about a campaign that SCAG, Southern California Association of Governments, started a while back to make sure that people can bike and walk safely without worrying about accidents. I will challenge any city in our region, and this is a great city here in Fontana, to make sure we make this permanent so the communities could do these activities.
The trend is nationwide that more and more people are seeing fewer people who want to drive, more people who want access to a wider variety of ways to get around.
Through encouraging people to get out of their cars with a development pattern that allows them to do that.
How do you get people out of their cars unless they feel safe riding in a transit system when all we've known is the security of our cars?
Our top 5 areas were, at first it was transportation, and then it sort of expanded into the green and sustainable transportation idea of maybe getting out of our cars, having a trolley system, a better public transportation system, going north, south, east, west, so we can reach areas and get out of our cars.
I'm a 33-year-old college graduate, and one thing that I did learn at college is new urbanism, and I think this is a perfect example of it. Instead of sprawling out into vast developments as we have in the past as a society, I think contracting our developments into a dense population where we have public access to transportation and the rail and the airport, I feel like we would be able to release ourselves from cars, from our carbon footprint on this planet.
So we're talking about trying to minimize, in the long-range plan, minimize single-occupant vehicle use.
And to give people an access and availability to modes of travel other than the automobile.
You're trying to get somewhere, right?
If you didn't have to drive, that's even better.
I'm confident we will create the narrative around what we need to do about transportation. If you look at transportation, I view us looking like New York, where people will in fact rely more and more on public transportation to get to and from one point to the other.
Something to consider, because we're talking about keeping people work right where they're at, sticking around, not getting on their cars and driving around, so that could be something to consider.
You want to strive to have a parking problem, right? I mean, ultimately, that's your goal, is to have so many people that you have a parking problem.
I take responsibility for the pain that my decision will cause you. I'm going to vote to take away your parking because when I look at the bigger picture, I'm responsible to the bigger picture. People talk about inconvenience. I know it's not just going to be an inconvenience for you. You're going to suffer, and I appreciate that, and I'm responsible for that, and I'll take the responsibility for it. But this decision that we're making tonight is 50 years into the future, 100 years into the future, and that's my job, is to make that decision.
We also have to spend time in educating the younger population on the value of transit. Because as they become the new riders or the new users of public transportation, we have to find a way to guide them away from the single cars and understanding the value of transit. We also have to spend time, because we have a number of baby boomers who are retiring in place, and we have to find ways to teach those folks on using public transit, because the majority of us in here today have grown up with cars. And now we have to look at a new way of transporting people as the population grows. So we have to be more agile with technology. We have to look at how with complete streets, we have to look at how complete streets look at walking, biking, public transportation. And we have to educate two populations that are growing tremendously in this area in the country, the younger population and the aging baby boomers.
Okay, bus. Wow, look at all these buses. This is crazy. Oh my God. What's happening right now? Why is there so many buses? And most of them are empty.
We are living in an age that would make the people that, there's an old book called Propaganda by Edward Bernays. We would make him blush by how much of a lie we are living in right now. We are being lied to at every level, from top to bottom, about everything. It is pure crap.
Likewise, all the decisions we make on these other subjects drives the demand and the type of demand, and I think that land use question is going to be a big one because it creates demand. What kind of demand are we going to drive? Are we going to drive or instigate, I shouldn't use the word drive, are we going to instigate demand that relies on driving? Are we going to instigate demand that can rely more on transit or walking or biking? Because we're responding as transportation professionals to the demand that's put in front of us.
This is about a plan that identifies what you as a community hope for. Most of this change is going to be market driven. This is the redevelopment agency isn't here anymore. Nobody, the government isn't going to go buy property and build buildings. This is going to be market-driven, but it's going to be vision-inspired and shaped by what we want.
So this whole process began in 2010 with the countywide vision. And the Board of Supervisors with the county CEO looked at producing this overreaching vision for the county.
We're walking, biking, and taking transit more and driving less. With sidewalks everywhere, walking and biking routes, and improvements that make it easier and more convenient to take transit, we have safe transportation choices that connect us to community destinations and contribute to better air quality, physical health, and access to jobs and activities. So, before I have you count off into groups, any questions about anything that I've talked about?
I have a question.
Well,
is that our vision? Did you just tell us what our vision is?
This is a draft which the committee is going to work on.
Oh, great. Because that's not my vision, not even close.
This is the vision that was adopted or discussed, and there was a consensus at the end of the charrette on how we want to see West Covina downtown redevelopment.
So we're talking about your vision.
No, this is not my vision. We're not talking about my vision. I'm representing what the community came together and decided collectively.
And then we just wanted to highlight some of the density-related policies in the general plan, just to show kind of our vision, what we've heard from the community.
Wait, she said our vision.
I see our vision, meaning the community of Upland,
Uh-huh.
to concentrate
No,
growth
it's
and
your
strategic-
vision. It's your vision. You just said our vision.
The reason why the city has a climate action plan is because some state bureaucrat, probably from Skag or Sandbag, lied to you and said it was a state requirement to have a climate action plan. This is not true. The purpose of a climate action plan is to regulate greenhouse gas emissions, streamline building so things get built faster, and it makes it easier to submit to Jerry Brown's mandates. This is what your city did to you when they signed you on to a climate action plan.
Why is it beneficial to have a climate action plan? So having a plan is always good because it identifies for you, where and how to target improvements and cost efficiencies. It helps you think through what you should be doing. Having a cap also increases the city's eligibility for certain kinds of funding that pays for projects that have multiple benefits.
So to set a goal for our greenhouse gas reduction, we need to know our source of greenhouse gas emissions. And the Sandbag plan lays this out for every city. This cap focuses most of its attention on reducing greenhouse gas emission through building. The screening table is the only thing that we're requiring for the cap. It's a selection of menus for builders, developers to meet our cap requirements in building energy efficiency. They list a number of points that the developers can choose to incorporate different building materials, for example, different windows, different doors, to accomplish different level of energy efficiency improvement. And they need to have at least 85 points to meet our cap requirement. That's the state's recommendation, and that tells you how important our state government thinks climate change is and how important is the role that it should play in our comprehensive long-range plan. So how are we going to tie the climate action plan into our general plan update? We propose that we adopt a climate action plan. And that, with our new general plan, we will set goals and policies. And then the general plan is going to reference the climate action plan as an implementation tool. The beauty with that is that so when there is a new state legislation on greenhouse gas emissions, we don't need to update or amend the general plan to address that. We can just amend this implementation tool, which is the climate action plan.
Do builders at this point already have to build according to greenhouse gas standards, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay.
Because they have to follow the California Building Code.
Whether we have a cap or not, they have to follow that. Oh, okay.
Exactly.
So this wouldn't affect that?
No.
Okay. And there is a financial incentive for us as a city to be able to apply for grants that we would be able to acquire if we have a cap versus if we don't. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yes, I shared that information with you in one of the prior workshops. We will be more competitive for grants.
Now, and can that also lead to more control by the state? Yes or no?
Depends on the source of the grant.
So
Maybe a state grant,
so-
it may
so-
not be a
So
state grant.
if it is, it can then, is that correct?
Any grant, you have to meet the guidelines of the grantee.
So, but we won't be able to even attempt to apply for the grant without the cap?
I wouldn't say that. We will be more competitive. We can certainly try to get any grant that we want to attempt to get, but with a cap we will be more successful. in being awarded?
I believe that the distortions in the marketplace for housing are not a bell curve, but they've been a constant curve, and they're getting worse. And so the challenge we have is SB 375, AB 32, cap and trade. It is a continuing laundry list of additional costs being layered on housing for other agendas. I'm not debating any of those goals.
In addition, as part of the Assembly Bill 32, or the move to cap greenhouse gas emissions and the cap and trade program that was established to run along with that, revenues are coming in higher than had originally been anticipated. So the last auction was in February, netted about $650 million that would then flow to a multitude of uses.
So actually that would, because the state of California is, pushing so many, conservation efforts and, renewable energy and everything.
Because we understand working with schools, we know how to take the solar energy equipment and monitoring platform and use it for education. So there's opportunities for curriculum development and field trips and getting the kids to get excited about math and science using solar as the centerpiece to do that. When teachers and the district embrace the solar curriculum, we'll be there to continue that support over time so that there's a way to make sure these systems are really bringing that extra value to the educational side.
Okay, I'm in Rancho Cucamonga for the City Hall meeting tonight, and they've got this cute little car here. Clean Fuel Healthy RC electric vehicle. Car number 122. Wow. Isn't that just the cutest little thing you've ever seen?
California is pushing net zero, and if anyone knows anything about net zero, it's going to be net zero water, net zero energy.
It is extremely important to also think of the changes that's happening today. The changes of Uber and Lyft and Airbnb and the millennial generation and how they think about transportation.
The Hero program. Is this the one where you can get solar or something like that?
Exactly. So we help finance energy or water efficient renovations.
You help finance it?
Through property taxes.
Through property taxes?
Up to 20 years.
Okay. And is that like a lien on your house?
Yes, so it's called a voluntary assessment. So it's not looked at like negatively, but it is a debt against the property.
And the millennial actually is adapting to that kind of life. So there's something called shared mobility, shared economy. People will continue to drive. Most of us will drive in the future, but we'll drive differently. And what was done by a car probably will be done by 5 cars in the future. So people will drive, but there's the shared mobility aspect. Many of the millennials are willing to stay in houses that others stayed in before, willing to share a car, to share a bike. So that would impact how transportation and land use is going to move forward.
I tell you, one of the things that I really enjoyed in Minneapolis were the little bitty cars. And I've always felt like they were a little death trap just to try it. One of the other mayors talked me into getting in there with them. We put our credit card in the machine, we got in it, and we had it for an hour. And people were giving us the different fingers up because we could park anywhere. Like there'd be a little spot between two other cars, we were able to just move right in there. So if you ever want an experience when you're up north in Berkeley or Oakland or San Francisco even, you have an opportunity to rent one of those little bitty cars, go ahead and do it, but make sure you know how to drive it.
Oh wow, what are these? We have a whole truckload of smart cars on the 60 freeway at Archibald. Car to go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 smart car to-dos. Oh, those look like little death traps. Good night, Mr. How do you say your name?
Hassan.
Hassan. Nice to meet you. Good night.
We have 14 RSVPs. Elected officials 14.
See, now Hassan drives that big black SUV over there. See that, what is it, a Honda?
Honda.
Yeah, but it's a gas guzzler. So he drives that, and he has to pay more gas tax than everyone else, so I guess that makes him mad. I don't know.
That is a big SUV.
Yeah. Yeah. Hassan, you should have told me you were coming today. We could have ride shared. We could have saved the planet and reduced our greenhouse gas emissions. Maybe next time we can just carpool to one of these events. Do you like that idea? Carpool? We can carpool to the next event and cut down on greenhouse gas emissions. Oh, I'm not sure, but you got room for a lot of people in that car.
You get pretty good gas mileage?
Okay, so this just proves that Alan Wapner is not a liar. He does have a fit EV. So see, he has a plug-in car. Hi, Alan. Look, he's in it. That is a cute little car.
Requesting your recommended approval of funding an agreement between the South Coast Air Quality Management District and Sandbag for an agreement for $450,000, which would allow us to move forward with the implementation of electric vehicle infrastructure projects. The 3 projects that we would like to move forward on is electric vehicle infrastructure for the Sandbag East parking lot, also at the San Bernardino Transit Center, as well as the MetroLink, San Bernardino MetroLink location over here. It would be a mix of level 2 and DC fast chargers. If you have any other questions, I'd be more than happy to answer those for you.
Okay, so I'm excited for Mr. Wapner because he has that little blue plug-in car that he can charge in when he's in Ontario. And then he can charge it in here at Sandbag, and he won't even have to drive his big gas guzzling Escalade. Congratulations, Mr. Wapner, that is awesome. And that's taxpayer money, by the way. $450,000 for 3 charging stations. Do the math. So, good for you.
And it will cost them more money, because it is a fact that renewables cost more money.
What makes all this worse is that our cities have to pay dues to SCAG and Sandbag to even be on these boards, so we're paying to be bossed around. But city council or the city staff will say, yeah, but they give us grants. Grants that have strings attached. Nothing is free. All that money you authorize every meeting has an agenda behind it.
So you're not going to be just left to your own about, oh, how do we develop a bicycle lane? We're going to actually provide some of the information, who to contact, whether the county is going to be able to provide some of those resources, where we can find additional grant funding that you could potentially apply for.
What are the things the city would want to go after, apply for grants? Because there's grants out there to do things to your streets.
We've raised about $8.5 million in grants. Okay, that's basically unheard of in the past 2 decades, I should say. And with those $8.9 million, we expect to see huge changes in the next 2 years. In the next 2 years, you will see a very apparent change on Atlantic Boulevard, on Wilcox, and on some of the other major corridors.
So that's an ongoing project. That's not going to cost taxpayers any additional financial burden. It's funded by grants that we continue to receive from entities such as Edison.
We did bring on a grant consultant to help us to be more proactive in that world, in that realm, and so I just wanted to point out that we've got some action plans and milestones associated with securing grants and trying to be able to spend other people's money.
Taxpayers' money, not other people's money. That's taxpayer money.
And in fact, in order to get grants, a whole number of grants, they want you to be in a larger collaborative process. We've heard it nonstop. If you go to Sacramento and you say, I need help in my community, I need X, they say, well, I don't have enough money for every X out there. But if you come together as a regional group and set your priorities, we will work with you on those priorities. We want to see that kind of collaboration.
The reason this is happening is because the federal government is
setting up the grants and loan system that way. So as you mentioned, how are we going to pay for this? Well, the way you pay for it is by setting it up so that you can get loans and grants.
But you haven't secured the funding for any of these ideas.
You can't until you have the idea on paper.
So you're going to change the way our lives, the way we live our lives in West Covina to accommodate the requirements for federal funding.
That's exactly it.
That's what you're doing.
Well, first
that's what I just heard you say.
I said we're setting up a general plan to allow us to apply for grants. We don't have to apply.
In other words, yes, but here's what I see as a resident. You're trying to force us all to get on bicycles so that you can reach into the federal purse and get the money, regardless as to what we want in terms of the form of
and you can see
transportation.
No, that's the way it is.
And purposes, that's what you're proposing.
That the federal government, when they do that, they're giving you money to redo your street.
But not in a way that will actually work. So what good is that?
So then you don't have money to redo your street.
What I wanted to do was set the context, because as the community grows, obviously our needs and our facilities need to grow equally to meet the demands of a growing community.
So growth is going to happen regardless. If anybody wants it or not, we have to be prepared for it because it's going to happen.
Do not be afraid of population growth. Do not. We're in a global economy now, and every country right now that has zero population growth is struggling economically. Population growth is a great thing, and that's why this conversation is good, because we need to look at it as an asset for this country, and therefore plan accordingly.
That's how we arrived at the 16,196 residential units that are currently being proposed.
And the population projections for the next 20 years would bring, another about 55,000 people, and depending on how big the average household would be, that could be another 15,000 or 18,000 new households.
The short answer to your question is we're growing as a city. SCAG is projecting that this city will add about 20,000 people in the next 20 years. I think the numbers, what are the numbers by SCAG? It's around 15,000. 15,000 over the next 20 years. So by the year 2035.
And Judge Goodman, who voted against the city, called the Hollywood plan fatally flawed. He was referring to SCAG's numbers and then referred to their estimate as entirely discredited. So folks, I think we cannot go forward with numbers from these agencies that are fatally flawed.
Where are all these people going to be coming from? Because a lot of people are leaving California. Businesses have left California. So where are we going to get the increase in population?
There are also birth rates. And what we are also observing is that fewer and fewer people are having fewer and fewer kids.
Fewer children are being born. Fertility rates have been cut in half. For those of you who have been in West Covina since it was founded, we zoned West Covina and every other suburban community in this country, every single one, to meet the needs of the baby boom household with children. More than half of the households in America's suburbia have children in them, or like 60–70%. Those days are gone. They're absolutely gone. It's going to be the rare community in this country, the rare suburb in this country, where more than a third of households have children in them. Yet we're stuck with the planning and zoning templates that just assume more than half of households will have children in them. We have to rethink that template. Times have changed. We're never going to go back to that. Well, never say never. It's unlikely we'll go back to those days.
In residential, the trend that we're seeing in San Gabriel Valley and certainly in Southern California is a higher percentage of multi-family units being built over single-family residences.
So we look here and we see the U.S. and California growing roughly the same pace over this 25-year period, about 25, a quarter of growth. LA County will grow less. Covina will grow just about the same rate as the county as a whole. One reason, of course, is that LA County, West Covina, San Diego are really substantially built out. To do anything to grow, you got to tear down a lot of what you got already built.
And just a block east or west of Sierra is where someone's going to come in, tear down 5 or 6 old single-family homes, and put a nice something in there, a townhome community or something that we allow them to build. And then those people, like you say, they live here, they walk to the downtown.
I would hope that we begin to build in the center of West Covina in a denser, walkable, more compact and diverse way.
I am in West Covina in Southern California, and I'm over in what is going to be the new downtown area, where they're already building the downtown area before it's even approved. This is the Wicks project, or the Lennar project.
The Lennar project is coming in with 450 new apartments, higher end, not ultra high, but we're looking at, probably $2,000, $2,100 for 800 to a little over 1,000 square foot.
Wow, these are built right up to the street.
Create a hypothetical case.
Look at that, they come right up to the street. Upland Central, new homes.
We are in Pasadena. They are building this construction site, Stack and Pack, Lux Apartments, coming soon. Look at this. They're doing this everywhere. Everywhere they're building Stack and Pack. Okay. Oh, another one.
Who is going to live in all of that?
Here we are, Sierra Madre, Pasadena area. Of course, more Stack and Packs being built because you will live where you work. You don't get to leave. We don't want any money leaving the city. Look at all those units. And there's the train right there. Transit-oriented development. You will live next to the train, pay thousands of dollars a month.
Okay, so we're here in Montclair. Okay, so we're here at the Meritage Home Sales Office, and they're putting up the transit-oriented development. And I'm gonna check out what your money will buy you.
And they have a train.
And they have all this food and a train. Why not?
Yeah, you can live right next to McDonald's, and it still has for lease on it. After all this time, these buildings are still leasing. So even though they're still leasing, they're still continuing to build new units, expecting people at some point to just show up and move into them. And so here's the famous Stadium Lofts, the mixed-use building that's been here for a while.
But you'll see it's a row wall development.
Oh, I know what they're planning here. I've seen the plans. And then of course we have a bus, because this is transit-oriented development land where all you do is ride buses and ride trains and empty train stations. So here's the Stadium Lofts.
Aren't you surprised they didn't get rid of lanes?
They'll do that eventually.
So left side's not developed, but the right side's fully developed.
That wasn't there the last time I was here. This is new.
Yeah, it's all buildings now. That's why I was shocked.
This is your future in action right here.
And then there's the Your Home sign.
A full boulevard of stack and pack apartments, over $2,000 a month. The bus runs down the street, and everything is still leasing because they say there's all this demand, yet all these places have vacancies. Yep, this is almost complete now.
Secondly, never forget, we have a ton of land here. I shared this statistic because people don't realize they know what they see every day, which might be a couple of red lights in front of them at a traffic stop. But in California, we have 100 million acres, 90% of which is either in protected open space or agriculture production. Literally about 10% is commercial, residential, and industrial development for 38 million people. We have plenty of land. And by the way, those statistics mirror the US statistics. There's a ton of open space.
So another idea is, I think the number is 62, 63, 64% of the state of California is owned by the government. San Diego County, you would guess how much of San Bernardino County is owned by the government? 81.5%. I would say that one of the real opportunities we have to win the political fight is to really talk about children, bring it to the future and opportunity and your children and where are they going to go and what are they going to do and how do we begin to build that into the system.
And I mean, am I the only one that's figured out that we are an aging population and they're trying to develop a city where you walk everywhere? I mean, I'm 30 years old right now. I'm not going to be 30 forever. And I'm told that because of my generation, that we have to have this fun Starbucks society where we just hang out everywhere.
So I'm the boomer arguing that millennials will change the future of America's landscape to be more urbanism, more walkable and so forth.
If you look at the millennials, really kind of my generation and perhaps those that are a little younger than me, they're looking for a true work-live environment. So they're looking to move back to city centers. And they're looking for places where they don't have to get in their car and drive for 20 or 30 minutes to get somewhere. They're not going to be faced with enormous traffic challenges because of that.
And there's a lot of people in that category, like myself included. Our kids aren't home anymore. We don't need the house and the yard anymore. We would love to live in a place that's smaller and that we could walk to 10 things. And there's a lot, and the millennial generation is famous for preferring to live somewhere that they can get to a lot of stuff rather than out in the suburbs.
The changing demographics that's occurring at two levels with the Gen Ys that are categorically rejecting the suburban living format and preferring the urban living format.
That's not true.
But the problem is communities forever have been designed as safeness. It's safe. It's the sameness. If you and you've seen probably many master plan communities and you live here, it used to be designed where there'd be a walkway and it would meander through a green space and you would go another mile and it was almost identical to where you were before. And there was a comfort level there. It was a sameness. It felt comfortable. However, the millennials, the iPhone generation, aren't comfortable there at all. The problem is they're used to having things at their fingertips, things happening like this. If you go to any major retail destination that are attracting millennials, they have things for them to see and do, and completely new things all over the place because their attention span doesn't last. And so where this comes from is our generation, we're going to have 2 jobs in our lifetime. They're going to have 27, 15 of which haven't been invented yet. So to go design a specific plan that has all the same stuff, they can't fathom that. We have to capture the people that are growing up in Rancho Cucamonga and moving out. Our dog parks, and there's tons of them, are going to be used as social places like you've never seen before. They're not going to have the typical, here's your piece of bark, here's your piece of lawn. They're going to have a bone bench. They're going to have a fire hydrant. They're going to have artistic art. They're going to have dog birthday parties. They're going to have signs of people that will have the dog's name, and they'll be changing over time. People will know not only the names, but they'll know the names of the dogs, what they look like. And you can see there's going to be different materials going on. They're going to be as fun as you've ever seen.
Remember that ULI, 70% of millennials intend to own their own home, and most of them want single-family detached home.
I think people are getting more and more comfortable with the idea of live, work. We have a lot of discussion, and at the Ontario Forum that Professor Loveridge mentioned, we talked about the millennials, and are they different than older generations? Do they want to live differently? Do they want to use transportation differently? And Joel Kotkin's report that we're basing this discussion on has a little different conclusion than things that I've seen elsewhere about millennials, which is
Let's do a survey.
Okay.
Okay, all the millennials in the room, how many of you at some point in your life would like to own a home? What do you think, 2/3 about that? And so how many of you would prefer more than that, probably about 80-90%, how many of you would prefer owning a home versus living in an apartment for the rest of your life? So that's just another data. These are Riverside kids, so they may be different.
So my reason for being here is I want to talk about the toll lanes.
And just the extension of one lane of HOV in each direction is a $550 million project. We're talking about adding 2 lanes in each direction, and it's about 3 times that cost, but think of the capacity improvement that brings.
The toll, this is in 2024 on the I-10, to go from LA County line to 4th Street in Redlands, a distance of 33 miles, is $7.15 during peak hour.
This is about creating what is going to resonate most with the people as they receive it. So how do we do that? Because one of the challenges we have is, as we work through the process on one side, it's about the language that's used, just like you all have in your independent businesses. You know, there's as much jargon for education and business and engineering and the other as, you know, one for the other. So it's about making it what resonates most with people.
Next, we talk about how we move increased use of tolls, say managed lanes, as opposed to tolling. The public hates the word toll. When you say to people, we're going to toll a lane in order to help traffic move faster, they don't hear anything but toll. If you say to them, we're going to allow solo drivers to ride in a carpool lane for a fee, they go, oh, really? How fun is that? So think about the marketing of how you say what you say, and add stuff to the discussion. Don't take stuff away. Tolling means you're taking something away.
So it only makes sense for us to be part of the regional solution, and that's to continue the express lane network.
Y'all know I've been voting against anything to do with the funding of what I call the toll lane. You folks here, people call it express lane, which I think is intended to try and trick the people, because it really will be a toll lane.
There's an assembly bill right now, 914, that Cheryl Brown has authored along with some other legislators, Mark Steinorth, Connie Leva, and that bill, if passed, would facilitate this plan. They have already made some amendments to the bill, and they're taking out the word toll because it sounds so death-like, and they're going to call them transportation facilities because that makes it sound better.
So I will be voting no on this because it still pertains to what you call express lane, what I call toll lanes. My last question from the presentation we had a few months ago was you told CEQA and all the investigations that are going on that before we even put a shovel in the ground, this organization will spend $40 million. Is that still holding true? Before we put the first shovel in the ground. I was given that figure a few months ago.
The overall numbers that were shared with the board last November and were also provided in this recap binder, total cost up to construction starting in 2019 is actually approximately $100 million.
How did I get from 40 to 100 million? I know it's 40 last time I asked.
I have a question. Sandbag has a budget of $120 to $130 million a year, and that is supposed to be used for transportation. But yet you are extending debt in the billions of dollars when your yearly budget is $120 to $130 million to build toll lanes. How, if you only have $120 million a year, do you expect the public to think it's okay for you to incur billions of dollars of debt that our grandkids are going to be on the hook for?
Unfortunately, we're going to have express lanes so that single drivers can have an opportunity to ride in carpool.
Because you say so?
No, because it's going to happen. It's already in place. We're seeing it on the 405, the 110, and the 10, and it works.
So as a result of California's failed policies, or successful, depending on what side of the war you were on, we are told we need VMT. We are fed this lie that somehow we will pay less if the gas tax is eliminated and we get tracked and taxed for every mile we drive. You are saying there's not enough money coming in, so why would you suddenly change the system so that you collect less money? Just one of many lies.
The gas tax doesn't work anymore. You know why it doesn't work? How many of you drive, by the way, electric or hybrid? Those gentlemen are not paying their fair share of maintaining the system, right? And we need to make them pay for their fair share, right? But by having the gas tax system, if you drive an electric car, you pay zero toward the maintenance of the highway system. That's not fair. You're making as much damage to the highway system as anybody else. If you're driving a hybrid that goes 45 miles per hour, you're not paying as much to the system.
But the one thing I did agree,
No, it's not.
where it talks about hardworking, long-driving Californians can't trust Sacramento with what they do with their tax dollars. And until we can, she urges this thing to get parked. And I think the biggest thing that I see as an impediment is to all of this is that the dollars collected for transportation don't always go back to transportation.
You think?
And so the credibility issue is a real one. And I think that perhaps.
Oh, well, at least he admits that.
That will be the impediment to this actually getting. What if there was a device in the vehicle that just as soon as you pulled up to the pump, it transmitted the data since the last time that vehicle gassed up, just the number of miles driven. For privacy folks, it's not like where they drove or where they were at, but it's just the miles driven. And it gets reflected on the price that you pay in the pump. So instead of, you're not paying the gas tax if you have that device, you're paying just for the miles you drove. So it takes care of any of this credit rebate stuff, where they are doing it in Oregon. You just, you've got that device, there's your charge for the miles you drove.
I guess my problem with the tax per mile is that freedom, going anywhere you want, when you want, that freedom's gone. When they can track you at every point.
They're tracking you anyway. Every new car sold has GPS on it. So, I agree with you that there's a privacy issue at issue, but again, if people want to follow you, they're going to follow you. They're tracking everything that we're doing and saying. Your cell phone.
Yeah,
Every day, Caltrans tracks where everybody's going based on triangulation of cell phones.
So this is just to streamline the process.
It's to come up with some kind of a funding source to maintain the infrastructure.
Oh, we're broke, basically. That's
So
what it
if
is.
you can come up with alternatives, that's wonderful.
So what you're saying is that the gas tax and the DMV tax is
It's
not
not
paying.
covering the infrastructure cost by any means, not even close. And so what's happening is the infrastructure, you see it, the infrastructure is decaying. So we need to come up with some way to pay for the maintenance.
If somebody comes out with the idea that we're going to use the amount of miles you drive as some form of a punitive measure to regulate your behavior, this program is dead. It'll just never happen.
Can you define sustainable?
Sustainable, pretty nice.
So that we can all just be on the same page, because I've heard a lot of different.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you could just define sustainable.
Sustainable, I don't know.
Sustainability is rational. It is being forced to use less of everything. Less water, they've got that covered already. Less energy, they are attempting that with renewables. Renewable energy is a giant crony capitalist scam where the government picks winners and losers and props up failed industry via cap and trade. Less food. That's being worked on by the United Nations right now. Less mobility. I cannot believe you guys think we are so stupid that people are actually going to believe that going from a car to a bus or a bike is somehow getting around quicker. Seriously, that's insane. Less freedom. Freedom is choice, and you are destroying our choices with this plan.
I currently study urban planning. I'm getting my master's degree, so this is obviously a topic of very much importance to me. But the last 2-3 years of my studies, it's all been about sustainable development. That's where our nation is going, and I think having a cap is very important to a big community like Fontana, and it's obviously very important to our residents that they want to be at the forefront of, you know, being ahead of climate change, and they want Fontana to be, you know, a city that is very mindful of climate change. So I think it's, you know, kind of what the residents are wanting.
What are we talking about when we talk about sustainability? So I think a very simple way of thinking about it is that it's meeting the needs of the present generation, people who are living today, without compromising the ability of future generations, your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, to meet their own needs. And so ultimately, what does that mean? Don't use up all the resources today.
You know, if you're thinking about what do you want Fontana to be known for, maybe Fontana can be the most sustainable city in the Inland Empire.
If you're interested in the subject of sustainability, for instance, of which basically means that you can, you know, life can continue without upheavals.
You know, when we talk about sustainability, we're trying to get at all the pillars of sustainability: economic, environmental, social.
We have to learn how to generate energy in a more sustainable way. Because we truly want a greener, more sustainable environment for all of our residents.
Many of you know that Mayor Eric Garcetti is touting his sustainable city plan for the city of Los Angeles. We in the city of Claremont for many years have had a sustainable city plan. Going back almost a decade, former Mayor Peter Yao initiated an ad hoc committee to look at sustainability, and from the efforts of that committee, we developed our own sustainable city plan. And furthermore, from that, we developed an ongoing sustainability committee that grades the city, continues to monitor our progress in achieving our goals and objectives under our sustainable city plan.
When we have so many resources, you know, so we have to work with what we have.
So the resources are finite.
I think they are.
That we agreed on where we were trying to go, so that we could prioritize scarce resources.
There is a drought, and we're in California, Southern California. That's kind of our life. We go from drought to flood, and there's different cycles. It's a serious drought, though, and we have some serious challenges. But if there's a spirit that we're setting about, it is that we are in this together.
We only have so much groundwater, and so we're giving everyone basically a ticket for groundwater. The question is we have a limited source of supply. So the question is, how do we allocate that water? What is a fair way to do that? And what we've come up with is that everyone gets 30 units. Because we only have so much water. So the question is, how do we do it?
So groundwater continues to decline.
How long were your reserves last? You said you could go for so many years. How many years? For what you have right now?
Well, based on what we expect to need in the next year, we have 10 years supply of groundwater stored below our feet.
This is a study done by Cornell, University of Arizona, and the U.S. Geological Survey. This is what they've come up with. The odds of a decade-long drought are at least 80%. The chances of a mega drought, one lasting 35 years or more, stand somewhere between 20% and 50%, depending on how severe climate change turns out to be. And the prospects of an unprecedented 50-year mega drought, one, quote, worse than anything seen in the last 2,000 years, checks in at a non-trivial 5 to 10%. We need 3.5 inches of rain every week for the next 12 weeks, times 3 years, with a good snowfall. And then we can probably start saying that we will see getting our levels back to where they should in fact be.
But ending where we started, the real drought busters is we need a decade or more of above average rainfall and snowpack. There is no quick fix for the drought. I told you it took us 15 years to get into it, and there's no quick fix. You're going to slowly crawl out of it.
Everlasting drought.
I think when the governor made the call, what he was really, he and his staff, what they were really trying to do is change the culture of California. Their real objective is to make a permanent change that reduces how much water we use. So they want culture to change, and they feel like it's necessary.
Okay, so here's somebody who caved into the pressure from the drought, and they're getting rid of their grass. Okay, so the transformation is complete on this house. There is no more grass. Now it is a rockscape. So there you go. Are you happy, Jerry Brown? These people bought your BS and they got rid of their grass. Mission accomplished.
When I look through this audience and I see a lot of friends and people who are very knowledgeable about water, and I see a lot of students who are doing excellent work, and we're really counting on you to carry a paradigm change forward as we go into the future.
So apparently over at St. Joseph's School, the kids are propagandized that they have to live in a sustainable world, and they're actually being taught that they have to ration food and water.
And the other thing is that there's been so much growth and demand for water in Southern California.
Where's that growth
There's all
coming
these
from?
great habits that you've developed. I hope you've developed them, you know, cutting back on your watering in your yard, in your household use.
Open borders.
Myself, I never flush the toilet. It scares people when they come to my house. But
Nasty.
that's a lifestyle. We're there forever, all right? So water saving and water conservation are a lifestyle. The good old days are gone.
Whatever we decide here, or the city decides, or the county decides, the state mandate, the executive order by the governor trumps everything.
My name's Jolyn Russo Pereira. I'm the Assistant General Manager with the Cucamonga Valley Water District. Yes, there has been a statewide drought. And in certain areas of the state, there still continues to be dire needs in water supply. However, this has never been the situation for Cucamonga Valley Water District. It's never been a water supply issue. Restrictions were adopted by our board of directors because we were under state regulatory compliance to comply with the reduction from the governor's executive order as well as from the state board.
The state is really trying to say, how can people use water more efficiently? And one of the things that the state recognizes is that one way to use water more efficiently is to not have the big lots that waste so much water. So there are plenty of choices for people who want a big lot. We think there's going to be a lot of demand for people who don't want a big lot, and those people at Empire Lakes will probably use 40 to 60% less water than people on more conventional lots.
If you think about drought and that's concerned, per capita, if you have more people living on less land, that's better for your drought condition, that's better for your stormwater, that's better for your energy consumption than a single family residence that's spread out.
And for those that aren't familiar with the arcane provisions in state law, in California we actually have a constitution that says that you have no right to use water if it's wasted or unreasonably used. And in fact, under the law, the state can take away your water rights if you waste or unreasonably use water.
I'm against doing some kind of mandatory thing that the city's then going to enforce. I just don't think that that works. And if we're going to talk about water, I think we need to talk about it in the whole picture, because the cities are currently, and the residents of our city are suffering because of the lack of leadership in Sacramento for the last 20 years when it comes to water storage. And So I mean, I have real problems because Sacramento has failed the citizens of West Covina that we turn around and adopt mandatory water restrictions with punishments, from the city. I have problems with that. So I mean, I won't vote for any of those things.
So my question is, why don't we just access primary water, and then we won't have to do any of the social engineering from the state? We could have water forever.
What's primary water?
All right, question. How far away is the source of the water? Is it just like right over, like just right close to us, or is it like a couple miles away?
What time is it?
It is 5:14.
5:14. We got plenty of time. On the way up to if you go beyond the ranger, the community center, you climb a hill, you go down the hill, you park on the side, you walk over about 200 feet to the left.
Okay.
So you go over that. He's okay. You go over that and over the hill, and then there's a spot where you can see rock, and it's wet. And all around there,
Oh, and now it's moving. Look at this, moving water. See that? Moving water that is coming out of the ground. That's where that creek starts from. So it's coming right out of here. So you see, it comes right out of this natural reservoir in the earth. So what I am showing is what is called primary water. There are two types of water cycles. There's the primary water cycle and there's the secondary water cycle. Rain comes from the secondary water cycle, and we are told that water only comes out of the sky. That's not true. Anytime you see a river or a stream or running water that is moving on its own with no resistance, like you see right here, this water is flowing into a stream. This is coming right out of the ground. This is what is called primary water. Rivers do not just dry out unless this thing dries out. So this whole idea of a drought in California is a fraud. There's plenty of water here. All a drought means is that you have below average rainfall for a certain amount of time. A water shortage is when you have a shortage of water. When you have water coming out of the ground in pools like this, it's just coming out of this pool, out of the ground, that means you do not have a water shortage. That means you have plenty of water. Look, here's another one over here. The same one I showed earlier. So water is coming out of this pool in the earth, and it's just streaming down here, and that is the Lytle Creek. And you saw that stream earlier in the video. So that's where this thing starts. It does not need to rain to make the Lytle Creek stream run. It is running because there's water. There it is. Brown is the new green. This is what sustainability is all about.
We would like to take care of, and we have been taking care of every corner of our region. And Imperial County, particularly the border crossing, is dear to our heart. We have just recently funded a few projects specific addressing on the border crossing and to reduce the waiting time as cars come in and to reduce the pollution.
What?
And we should ask for next question, please. We would like to give the opportunity to the LA downtown office.
They're letting people crash faster?
So, if you will all stand, please. And with the divine beings, and with Bahil himself, let us all take a deep breath and hold it. Remember Bahil, and as you exhale, not yet, together we will breathe life back into Tovangal. The Holy, it is good. Yamanhene, I go now.
And so for those of you who are not from California, I always like to say, stay tuned. California